Yes.
Mine goes back to the highlighted thing about attitudes of researchers and consumers. Research generation and consumers. So in a country where most of the funding for research is literally other places, other countries, it means that the priorities of the country might not be necessarily aligned with the value that people are funding. So the consumer is there thinking, okay, this is what I need, but this is what they are doing because their funders are asking them to do that. How are we going to bridge that gap? Because I think as long as we are not doing what the consumers want us to do, we might never get them to utilize our research. So how do we try to marry them?
I think that's where Dr. Kalibala started. But yeah, we can address that again. Yes.
My question is for Dr. Kalibala again. So when you have your research, you have your findings and you're going to the stakeholders, what I want to know is, do you have criteria for how you come up with the recommendations? For example, you go to literature search and look for recommendations, or you go and tell them this is what we have found. For example, in the case of stigma, we found there's a lot of internal stigma. Let us look for a solution on how to deal with it.
Let's take 4 questions or comments. And then the other time. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Mine is a general question. Because I'm a psychiatrist, someone may not clearly understand what I'm saying.
Can I intervene right here? I've been working with rural communities in Raqqa for the last 30 years. And researchers will come, we go in with this idea. These common people, they don't understand what I'm saying. And you get shocked when you simplify what you are saying. And the people understand and ask you very sensible questions. So when you say we may not understand,
and that is my question, because when I'm writing to a journal, I'm trying to prove that this knowledgeable scientist who knows all these networks in the brain. When I'm writing for policy, I'm trying to convince this person with money that this needs to be done. So how do you balance the two? How low do you go in terms of simplicity versus scientific?
okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot to all presenters, to the chair. My question goes to since we're talking about utilization, I don't know whether you have some experience to share regarding sustainability. Since for example, quite often you get a funder, but the funding has a certain level. So as we engage stakeholders, I don't know whether you can share any experience with where the stakeholders have taken up those results and then say, okay, maybe we can move on from here to there, trying to see that at least gradually we can have further utilization of those results. Resources just from the community.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, mine goes to Dr. Semakola regarding locally generated research translated to local for practice. I'm just wondering what extent maybe the international guidelines may influence, because many times when you're trying to front the generated evidence from the WHO guidelines say this, and therefore you wonder how you're going to navigate your way into the WHO guidelines that eventually inform the Uganda adaptation.
Before the panel answers or comments on those, I know there are people in this room whose research has influenced practice and policy, both at the national and international level. So please, let's not leave the comments or answers to only those who are presented, but let's also tap into the expertise that is in this room. And I'm sure people know who I'm referring to. They know themselves. Yes, who wants to have a go? Sam.
Okay, I can about the attitudes and also how you meet the challenge that you have funders who come with their preformed ideas, and then you have stakeholders who say this is the way it's supposed to be done. This is where your role is. You are in between those two. You're going to negotiate the two. And I say that, first of all, you don't want to commit yourself to the stakeholders, to the research that you want to do to meet their needs when the donors will not pay for it. At the same time, you don't want to come and try force that research from the donors when the stakeholders are not agreeing. So what you do really is it's a game that you understand that I want to say what they have approved, and then you come here, they make a change, you go this way, you come back and bring it back to the donors, and you keep negotiating, you get in the middle. But quick example, one time I was working for the AIDS vaccine initiative. We came here, we wanted to do a vaccine trial, and we didn't have enough money to educate the communities about the vaccine trial before doing it. And the then chairman of the AIDS Commission, Professor Kaumam Sai Kauba, said, if you don't have money, enough money, go back and get enough money, and then you come back and do the research. It was very simple because the money for educating the community is really very small. And this was said compared to the amount of money that is being put in the whole research. But they were saying, our budget is very limited, we don't want to go about educating the whole community. Decided to come and say, okay, if you don't have enough money, go back and collect the money, and when you have, you can come and do it. So, sometimes you can use these very strong stakeholders and say, this is what they have said. Okay, the next question, how do you develop recommendations that are relevant to programs? Yeah, you don't have any knowledge. You are just a researcher, very, very much in depth. That's why you need data interpretation workshop. Because you really don't know how to recommend. Once you reach your conclusion, you are stuck. You don't know how to put recommendations. Call data interpretation meeting of the stakeholders, and they will give you the actual language that you're going to use for recommendations. People better understand the language. I think the professor has already explained to you that. But in one book that I was reading, the best example they gave is, if you go back to the publication that two scientists published to show the DNA, the discovery of the DNA, the genetic material that we are made of. My friend, the language they used was the simplest language ever. And this was the highest level of science. Try and find that. You will be really overwhelmed by the way these two people were able to write in a very, very simple language their conclusion about the DNA genetic material. So you can make it simple if you want. Okay, let me ask the sustainability before you go into here. So sustainability. We had a workshop which we were doing in South Africa, and we called African role models who have managed to maintain a research profile. And so the issue was for them to demonstrate how they did it. What they demonstrated was that it's actually you, the researcher, who begins guiding the donors. You may not realize it, but if you want a particular area of interest that you have, there's someone who works with me in Nairobi. She's called Hayat Birungi. She is a social science, an anthropologist. Her interest was in the young people living with HIV and their sexuality. Not what cancers were telling them, don't have sex. But her interest was, these people want to be loved, they want to love. Who is addressing their need? So she began doing here, one side in Tasso, people picked it up, they could not believe it, what these young people were saying, that yes, I want to be loved. And because of that, I cannot go telling my lover my HIV status. So one study developed into a program, another study came, they kept following her, the donors kept following her because of that interest. So you as a researcher build your area, and that area you continue influencing stakeholders to do programs and influencing researchers. Okay?
I'd like to start with Rebecca's, which is the issue of locally generated research versus the WHO guidelines. How that research could actually be adopted. So, to me, it's more about the issue of contextualization of that research in the existing body of knowledge. That's how WHO does it. They don't look at one study, they look at many studies. And so your research might be one of those many studies that people might look at, see if they can change guidelines, if that time is appropriate for changing guidelines. And sometimes you might also find that the findings are extremely important, but they actually can't wait for the next time the guidelines are changed. If the findings are extremely important, you might actually go ahead. They might actually go ahead and, depending on what the finding is, make those changes. Which again brings me to the other issue of attribution versus contribution. Sometimes when we talk about policy influencing, people sort of tend to think about it as my study made the change in policy, contributed to the change. So my study resulted into a change in policy. Sometimes your study is going to contribute, meaning that there are other studies that might actually contribute, unless there's a very dramatic effect from your study on a very important issue. Case in point is, think about 10 years ago, there was a study in acute care called the FEAST trial. They evaluated the role of fluid boluses in acutely sick children. And there was a practice, I don't think it was based on recommendations earlier, but there was a practice that, child comes in with, very high temperature, all the signs of shock, except hypovolemia, that are not resulting from hypovolemia, that you can actually treat them as though they had hypovolemia. And so it was common for people to give fluid boluses. But that study actually revealed that giving fluid boluses to children without volume deficiencies is actually detrimental. And so that's probably one of the studies. It shocked a lot of people even within the WHO, and they actually had to mobilize funds to give Catherine Maitland to do more research about this issue. And I think some of those studies actually still run. Then going back to the issue of simplifying science information, I think the whole talk here, if you combine the presentations that have happened this morning, some of the presenters have talked about working with researchers, knowing that they're researchers who are steeped in the methods of science. There are other people who are on the border between research and policy. They understand both processes, and they can work with you to actually communicate your research in a manner that is meaningful to people with no education at all. So that can be done. That's, again, in support of the statement you made about, I don't want to quote this time, but we explored whether children can actually understand the concept of clinical trials, whether children can understand the issues of systematic reviews. We asked those questions last year, and we were able to, in some way, teach children 10 years old to understand why clinical trials and its relevance. And we had experiments on the pitch in all sorts of places to explain why. We also explained in that study why a single study, can be misleading. And we found ways, working with teachers and working with the children themselves, we found ways of explaining that concept to children, and the children can get it. So we can get the psychiatrist, we can get whatever research, science, and we can actually bring it down to a level that
Stella, Patience, and Ruby, and Philip.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mine is on the sustainability component. I think one of the limitations that, especially from the feedback received from the districts, that the researchers actually, the challenge has been when you collect the data, you go back to the very people you collected the data from. So as we made the presentations last week, most of the comments from the district local government officials were, we usually receive many people here, they come, they do the research, but we never receive feedback. We only hear about our researches in international circles. So part of the sustainability is some of these donors actually go back to find out, did this research happen? and these are the people now we'll be able to recommend. So that is on one component. The second component is once the data has come out, how much have you disseminated it? We are getting funding from the Embassy of Ireland to do our second national study, because we've been giving out information on stigma. Every available opportunity, we talk about the stigma index. Even when they have not funded, we provide them with the results. So keeping that interest, just as Sam indicated, the kind of relationship you have as a researcher will determine how much you can actually bring on board. So we provide more information, this and this, they get more interested. Right now, I think the other, because of having these results out, Global Fund and the PEPFAR actually incorporating the stigma studies, which was not the case before. So I think now we can think of more and more funding coming out, but all stemming from, even when the money is there or not there, have we been able to disseminate the results? That dissemination component is actually important as part of sustainability, other than sitting with the results and we think people will read on their own.
Patience, do you want to comment before that?
Yes, I could just add one, I think, key point that was highlighted by the policymakers in the stakeholders meeting was they had a question that how many sessions were necessary for the caretaker to disclose to the child. So in terms of implementation, it's important that the sessions are specific, they are few and simple to be given. And so we did have that question because further analysis of the data is being done, but again in terms of follow-up and the mindset of the policy makers, I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, thanks. I'll give comments on some of the different issues that have been raised. I think one is when you have a relevant research question, it should be with, as you plan at the beginning, what will be the outcome. If the results are good, obviously it's great. If they're not so good, it's also important to disseminate the results because it actually gives input. People are doing the same research as you're doing, but realizing that maybe it's not going to work, they can actually change their design of their study or do a different study. But going back to a successful study, sometimes you conduct a study and you're not sure to be that successful. Going back to HIVNet 012, single dose nevirapine to the mother and infant, now it's history. But the reality is the results were so good that they needed to be shared. They were going to make a significant impact to the population. So I think even as we do studies, some studies are good to know, but some studies are actually going to impact the health of the population. And I think Dr. Kalibala mentioned it, that primary aim of our research is to improve the health of our population. So even as we conduct our studies, there are some studies it's nice to know, but there are other studies which, if they actually are successful, will really improve the health. And that's what we want to do, studies that improve the health of our population. And in that regard, really you need to involve the stakeholders as you disseminate at every level. At the higher scientific level, publish, because some people won't accept any data that's not published, that's scrutinized, peer reviewed. But then also at the lower level where people in the population can actually desire to access the intervention that you studied. And obviously the policy makers, the Ministry of Health, are the drivers. And as we compared HIVNet 012 results versus circumcision, was very different. Because HIVNet 012, they ran with it. But obviously WHO also ran with it. So I think there's a big drive in terms of when you have an intervention that's successful, how do you get the Ministry of Health and the policy makers is actually sharing, as you said, the stigma at multiple fora, so then other people are willing to look at that. The other thing I think you have to find a niche. Is there a research question that hasn't been answered, rather than answering sort of a different angle of the same question? Find something that's really, there's so many questions that need to be answered. How do we get that niche? And then when we get the results, how do we ensure, if the funding for your grant has ended, how do you ensure you get additional funding? So we do want to thank SOAR. For us, the DISCO funds were actually ending before we finished the study, and we had to get additional. The NIH grant was not enough. We got SOAR funding to finish the study, so all the participants were followed, and then we also got additional dissemination money. So I think really we need to put dissemination money in the regional grant. But sometimes it's not there. How do you get additional funding? The other question before I end is, sometimes you can't share the results before the end, especially for randomized controlled trials. You have to wait until all the data is in, it's all analyzed, otherwise you give this information. The results in the mid-analysis may not be the actual results at the end, but obviously you can share some of the findings. Thank you.
Now we are nearly 10 minutes past time, and I don't want to take this much longer, but I would like to give an opportunity to Dr. Kalibala, given that it is come on the way, for any last comments you may have. The intention of this session was really to whet your appetite. If it was already wet, to make it wetter for using research results. And there are many questions, there are many issues that one needs to know. In simplifying communication to different levels is not something you learn overnight. It requires practice, it requires, it's like telling you, you've done research this project for 5 years, and you tell us in 1 minute what this research is about and what the results are. To be able to do that in 1 minute, or the so-called elevator speed, it requires practice. And so it doesn't come that easily. But some, you may want to deliver some.
Yeah, so all I can say, first of all, I want to thank Prof for inviting me, but also I'm very, very impressed by what Daniel has presented about the number of efforts that have been undertaken to focus on that area of research utilization and knowledge translation. Now, when we were starting, I don't know if the professor you remember, that we didn't even know how to use computers, that we were gathered by Case Western Reserve University up there at Kansas Institute. They brought 16 computers and they told us for two weeks, to how to begin working on computers. 1990, how to begin working on computers. So when we were starting doing this work, of course we were junior researchers, we coming, helping in. But what Dr. Mbidi told us was that there is the science and the politics of research. And what I came to realize later on is that the politics of research is that engagement early on. So people come, the white people will come with the studies already made and so on. Then they go face and beat them. And then you ask them those wise questions. And in the end, we had to discuss and debate, the meaning of that study, where it's going to be done, how the study participants are going to be approached, making the whole study very humane and very Ugandan. And I think that process didn't make Dr. Mbidi an enemy of donors. It made him actually a port of entry for donors, because they saw a wise man who would tell them that unless these are on the ground, this study will not be good for Uganda. And then they listened and went back and revised. So I think that was that's what really it means to engage stakeholders from the beginning up to the end. And how studies eventually, like now the PMT studies, Professor Mira and so on, when they were being done, because there was so much collaboration. By the time the results were out, we just implemented immediately. So I think that this whole process, external donors and researchers will appreciate it the more you tell them really very common sense issues. And you say the study will be more meaningful if we did it this way and that way. So I really appreciate those. I just want to share in the words of the elders how they've guided us. So please follow that path. Thank you.